Welcome to New York's number two sports show. The Yankees win the series over the Minnesota Twins in Minnesota, taking 2 of 3. They got shut out in game one. Pretty ugly loss. And, coming off of the Red Sox series, actually got their best starting performance in that one from Carlos Rodon. But games 2 and 3 were very similar. Yankees scored 10 runs each, games 2 and 3. And, the starters, Cam Schlittler and Luis Gil, really with very easy win possibilities, given the amount of runs that were provided for them, falling out short of qualifying for a win. Both go 4 2/3. So again, games 2 and 3. Game 2 really got way too close for comfort as the Yankees were up 10-1 and actually won 10-9. Game 3, a little bit similar, but not quite to that extreme. But, would have been bad to lose a series to the Twins. And so the Yankees end up 4-2 against Minnesota this year, which really is kind of bare minimum. They had a somewhat recent series home against the Twins. At least it feels that way. And the Yankees took 2 out of 3 in that instance and 2 out of 3 here. So, can't complain with it. I mean, look, could the Yankees have maybe gone 5-1 in those 6 games? Yeah, but at the end of the day, they do what they have to do. And unfortunately, their pursuit of the AL East is, getting more challenging by the day. They don't gain ground. So, when we last spoke after the Red Sox series, the Yankees were 4 games behind the Blue Jays and in essence 5 games due to the tiebreaker that Toronto owns over the Yankees. And that stays the same, right? So Toronto still has 1 more game with Tampa, but to this point, Toronto's taken 2 of 3 and the Yankees took 2 of 3. That's not going to get it done. And so with 10 games left, the Yankees have to make up 5 games of the Blue Jays. It is a pure long shot at this point. Not something I'm expecting. We'll continue to talk about it, but it's really not where it's at. Where it is the Yankees trying to hold on to that top wildcard spot so they can have home field advantage in a best-of-3 series. And we'll see who that opponent is. I mean, it's the likely opponents. And I mean, hey, give the Cleveland Guardians credit. They are on a 6-game winning streak. They're playing really good baseball lately, and they've actually kind of made things interesting in the Central race. The Tigers, they should still win the division, but it's no longer a total sure shot. But that aside, it'll either be the Red Sox, Mariners, or Astros, and we've kind of known that all along. But I think it really looked like it was going to be Yankees, Red Sox for sure. It still could be, but the more, kind of things progress, the more it seems like, hold on, like not so fast. So that's going to be interesting to see. And I think that with the Yankees remaining schedule, they should be able to maintain that number 1 wildcard spot. However, and we'll talk about it after we discuss the Twins series, Yankees got 4 games coming up at the Baltimore Orioles, and that will not be easy. Like 7 of the last 10 games against Baltimore, they are playing really, really good baseball. It's a divisional opponent. It's a team that had a lot of high hopes, and their pitching's looking very, very good. So that will be one that we'll discuss after reviewing and recapping this Minnesota Twins series. So game 1 was ugly, and really there's no excuse for it. I mean, I think it's worth mentioning the fact that the Yankees, are coming off of a Sunday night loss to the Boston Red Sox, an emotional 12-game gauntlet. And I did feel like that did affect them a bit here. Again, like, that doesn't mean that you go out there and kind of lay an egg. That's kind of what happened. The Yankees bats were just completely silenced by Simeon Woods Richardson. And that, just cannot happen. He picks up the win. Woods Richardson goes to 7-4. He went 6 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts. Like it was almost as if it was Garrett Crochet from the night before. For the Yankees, Carlos Rodon pitched pretty well. Like he ends up taking the loss to go to 16-9, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. Like, that should normally get the job done. And like, if he had pitched in games 2 or 3, he would have ended up with the win, but that wasn't how it went. And it ends up being just, demolition derby for the Yankees offensively games 2 and 3. But again, they get shut out in game 1. So it's kind of it's kind of, you put this game, on its own. And as far as the lineup was concerned, Caballero would start at short in games 1 and 3. So Volpe actually did pretty well in game 2. But it was a good sign if you're not someone that really wants Volpe to be the starter. The fact they went back to Caballero in game 3 was good. But look, I think that we're going to see what happens. I still think that there is a chance that come game 1 of the playoffs, that Anthony Volpe is your starting shortstop. But at least things feel a lot better now than they did, you know, less than a couple of weeks ago, where, legitimately now it's a platoon at the very least. And I would say that right now Caballero kind of has that edge. But again, Volpe did get a start in game 2. Giancarlo Stanton started games 1 and 2, both at DH, was on the bench in game 3. Aaron Judge, I think it was the first time possibly since he has played the outfield that he was in the outfield 2 games in a row starting and right in games 1 and 2. And then he was the DH in game 3. Let me think if there was any other. McMahon got all 3 games because it was a righty starter for the Twins in each one. And then Ben Rice would be on the bench to start game 1 as they went with Wells catching and Goldschmidt at first. But then Rice started in games 2 and 3 where the odd man out was. So essentially what happened was the odd man out was Rice in game 1, odd man out was Goldschmidt in game 2, and then odd man out was Wells in game 3. So I think that pretty much covers it. Of course, Cody Bellinger kind of bounces around, and with Stanton out in game 3, we would see Jason Dominguez start in left field. So game 1, which, not a whole lot of positives to discuss in this one. Again, Woods Richardson really just had the best of the Yankees. They did not look good at all. There weren't that many opportunities, so may as well discuss the few ones that they had. I mean, in the second inning, you have a runner on second, 2 out, Caballero crowns out. But in the bottom of the third is where the Twins take the lead. It's a Pareda leadoff double. Julian ends up getting an infield single. Not a great defensive showing by Jose Caballero in game 1, and specifically this bottom of the third where eventually he almost, because that was a play that can't remember if that was a play that he could have made or not, but I do know that the Austin Martin, there was a potential double play that could have been had that I believe Caballero took a little bit too long to get it to Chisholm, and Pareda ends up scoring. Martin safe at first, and so the Twins take a 1-0 lead in that third. And again, Caballero not the best defensively that inning. And then Caballero would get a double. And it's interesting. Caballero has shown a little bit of slug in the way of doubles and some homers, but he gets picked off. Caballero a little bit too aggressive, needed to maybe just wait a little bit longer, and Simeon Woods Richardson picks him off, and they get him caught stealing third. And so that kind of ends that threat. Brooks Lee, who had a nice series for the Twins, hits his 15th homer of the year. It's off of Rodon to make it 2-0 Twins right there. Giancarlo Stanton had a really, really rough night. So what ends up happening here is it's a runner on second, 2 out. He strikes out in the 6th. Golden sombrero for Stanton. And the good news is he did turn things around in game 2. Stanton is very streaky, as we know, and it been a little bit of a cold spell for him. And again, those 4 strikeouts, it was pretty bad in the sense that there were pitches that he was just simply missing. It wasn't even a matter of him, we know he likes to expand out of the strike zone when he's not doing well. These were just mistake pitches that he just wasn't able to do anything with. Let's go to the bottom of the 7th. And for Luke Weaver, there's been a couple of okay outings, but it's mainly been bad for Weaver. He would redeem himself a bit in game 3, although even there he was hit a little bit hard, but a really ugly outing for Luke Weaver in the bottom of the 7th of game 1. Trevor Larnach double, Brooks Lee RBI double, and then eventually a bases clearing double for Austin Martin to make it 6-0, and that would be all for Weaver, who ends up being on the hook for 5 runs and only records 1 out. Camilo Doval would come in and he would give up an RBI single to Luke Keeschel, so that would be Weaver's 5th run right there. At that point, Yankees get a couple of guys on in the 8th, and Cody Bellinger actually Um, Flies out to left, Austin Martin in foul territory. It was a situation where a Yankee fan actually, Minnesota tried to grab it, didn't. If he did, that would have continued, and it might have actually deflected off of his finger, which would have kind of made the play dead. But I mean, the score was 7-0 at this point. It really didn't matter much. It's an out. Tim Hill pitches a 1-2-3 eighth inning in replacing Doval. And the Twins in the ninth, they finish it off. They shut the Yankees out 7-0. But the Yankees are able to respond, and the bats really, really got going. And the main catalyst, I haven't even brought him up yet, Trent Grisham, who, look, he had been struggling. I mean, the good thing about Grisham this year is that those struggles have not lasted crazy long. Like, Trent Grisham is someone that has always had the power tool. Like, he's always had that home run ability. What I like about Grisham this year is that, look, I know a 240 batting average is not going to wow you, but I'll definitely take that with everything else. The on base percentage is really, really solid, just shy of 350s and an 825 OPS. Like, just when you think that maybe Grisham might be really, really struggling, and maybe like if we looked at the splits, the monthly splits, like May and June wasn't great. I'd say almost especially June. Like a 689 OPS, not great, but then he's just really turned it on. Look, September has not been a great one, like as I kind of just said for Grisham, but yet again, like he hits a lot of big home runs. Like it just seems like whether it be like some big 3-run homers or tying homers late or homers that give them a lead. And that was the case again, more specifically in game 3. So I'm jumping ahead slightly, but he had a great game 2 as well. For the Yankees, as far as the pitching was concerned, Cam Schlittler, this was probably the toughest I've seen for him as far as his command. The walks were a problem to the point where he was unable to qualify for the win. He only goes 4 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 runs, 5 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And that battle, that third spot, it's still up for grabs because it kind of felt like maybe Gil had it, but Luis Gil didn't have a very good game 3. So I don't think it's set in stone yet. I think it depends on the matchup. I think it depends on how they're doing. I think there's a lot of different factors here. That Fried and Rodon are 1 and 2, and that's not a question at all. But I am curious, and I have been, who is going to be number 3, and I don't think we totally know that yet. And so for Schlittler, too many walks for the Twins. Zebby Matthews really, really had a rough go at it. He loses to go to 4 and 6. It's 3 innings, 11 hits, 9 runs, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts for Matthews. And for the Yankees, they would jump out to the early lead in the first inning off of a Cody Bellinger RBI single and a Giancarlo Stanton sac fly. In the bottom of the first, it's walks that get the best of Schlittler with 2 out, and it leads to a Royce Lewis RBI single deflected off of the glove of Ryan McMahon. So that makes it 2-1. But the second and third inning is where the Yankees really do their main damage to give them the win. And Anthony Volpe with a 1-out double, and then Austin Wells an RBI double. So it was a nice return for Volpe. And look, Volpe's done pretty well against some of the lesser competition. It's just a fact. But hey, like better than not doing that. And so also Wells almost hits a homer, goes off the top of the wall and stays in, makes it 3-1 Yanks. And then Trent Grisham, it's his 31st homer of the year, 2-run shot to give Yankees a 5-1 lead. They weren't done, as with 2 out, Stanton gets an RBI single to make it 6-1. Top of the third, Yankees at it again. You got a sac fly by Grisham to make it 7-1, sac fly by Judge to make it 8-1, RBI double by Rice to make it 9-1. And then at the top of the fourth, new pitcher, Cody Lawyerson on for the Twins. And the Yankees get one more as it's an RBI single for Volpe, which ends up being a very, very big 10th run to make it 10-1. And at this point, Schlittler really, from innings 2 through 4, did a great job at the fifth. It just all kind of comes undone for him. James Outman, it's a 2-run homer, his 5th homer to make it 10-3. There ends up being like 3 walks, a wild pitch. There was a double steal involved. And ultimately, when it's a 10-4 game after a wild pitch scores Byron Buxton, it would be Fernando Cruz, who kind of had a very similar role in games 2 and 3. In this game, he only gets the 1 out, but it's a big out. He gets Royce Lewis to ground out to end the 5th. In the bottom of the 6th, Ryan Yarbrough struggles. And Ryan Yarbrough had mostly been pretty good since he's returned, and just in general, but this 6th inning was rough. Matt Wallner double, Mickey Casper, RBI single, Ryan Fitzgerald, lefty, 2-run shot to make it 10-7. Then there's a 1-out double to Buxton. So a real rough go for Ryan Yarbrough. giving up 4 runs and only getting 1 out. But Mark Leiter Jr. comes on and he allows a bunt single to Austin Martin. And then Trevor Larnach's the tying run, just like that, in the 6th. And he almost hits a 3-run homer. But luckily, it's a sac fly. Went to the warning track. Judge makes the catch, makes it 10-8. And then from there, give Leiter Jr. credit because the last out of the 6th, and even though he was hit somewhat hard, didn't really have the strikeout stuff, he puts up a 1-2-3 7th inning. So Mark Leiter Jr. is actually given the win by the official score. So crazy. Leiter Jr. 6-7. That's a lot of decisions for a reliever. So he does the job. Yankees had maybe some opportunities like in the 8th to increase the lead. They don't. Bottom of the 8th, Devin Williams does it. Devin Williams has been really good lately. And that's important because he is going to be a key cog if the Yankees are going to have success. That's just the fact of the matter. Even if he's not going to be the closer, Devin Williams is one of the high leverage relievers. It's a 1-2-3 for Williams with a couple of strikeouts. Again, Yankees in the 9th had a chance to maybe increase the lead and don't. And David Bednar comes in the 9th and he does allow a 1-out homer to Trevor Larnach. His 17th homer of the year makes it 10-9. But a nice play by Goldschmidt on a Cody Clemens ground out, and then Royce Lewis strikes out. Yankees hold on for the 10-9 win. So they end up getting the win, which kind of just quells any of the storylines that would have been if they somehow blew it. But really early and often, not often, early, the Yankees got to Zebby Matthews in a big, big way and were able to kind of just hold on to victory. Game 3, the rubber match. The Yankees win, and it's another 10-run outing for the Yankees. I believe that's now 24 10-run games for the Yanks, which is the most in baseball. They're 23-1 in those games, the one loss being that crazy Yankee-Marlin game out of the trade deadline. But Luis Gil, not one of his better outings. For me, at least on the stat line, this is probably his maybe second worst outing after that first one that he came back against, ironically, the Marlins. A lot of hit. Luis Gil, like I say, it's kind of like it's Rodon light in the way of Gil is one of those guys that's pretty good in terms of opposing batting average. In this game, he ate up 9 hits. The Twin offense was really good all series. 4 2/3, 9 hits, 5 runs, 4 of those earned, 2 walks and 2 strikeouts for Luis Gil. For the Twins, Taj Bradley did not pitch well. The former Ray gets the loss, goes to 6-8, 4 innings, 8 hits, 7 runs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And here the Yankees would take the early lead, a 2-out rally, Judge doubled, Cody Bellinger RBI single makes it 1-0. And then at the bottom of the 2nd, a bit of a sloppy inning by the Yanks. 1-out walk for Wallner, a throwing error by Luis Gil on a pickoff attempt. Eventually, you get a 1-out RBI single for Royce Lewis tied up at 1. There was a situation where McMahon, it would have been a really, really great play. He almost made a catch that would have been a double play. He gets the 1-out. He didn't do anything wrong, but he almost made a spectacular play. And it leads to 1st and 3rd with 2 out. And there's a pass ball on Ben Rice to make it 2-1 Twins. Like with Rice, he needs to not have that happen there. And so that gives the Twins a 2-1 lead. But the Yankees tie it right back up, and it's Grisham. 32nd homer of the year, solo shot to tie things up at 2. And then the Yankees break things open in the top of the 4th. 1-out double Goldschmidt. And I think Goldschmidt's been quietly solid. Like look, that knee, it doesn't look like great running for Goldschmidt, but I will say I do like what I've seen from him at the plate. And that's important. So Jason Dominguez gets the 1-out double. And look, Dominguez in the spare time, in the little few games that he's played, seems like Dominguez has been making contributions. It's an RBI double for Dominguez to make it 3-2. And then eventually, with 2 out, Dominguez steals 3rd. Caballero walks. He's still 2nd. And so with 2nd and 3rd and 2 out, it's Trent Grisham with the big blow. 2nd homer of the game, 33rd of the season, gives the Yankees a 6-2 lead. And they weren't done. Ben Rice double, Aaron Judge single, and then while Cody Bellinger's up, a balk on Taj Bradley that scores Ben Rice to give the Yankees a 7-2 lead. Within this, Jazz Chisholm Jr. made a number of spectacular plays in this game. One in the 4th inning on Brooks Lee, just an amazing acrobatic play by Jazz. And even though sometimes he'll slip up on the easy ones, Jazz is one of those types of guys that he can make some really, really nice plays on balls that you just wouldn't expect him to get to. And he's got a strong arm. So that was really important. Bottom of the 5th as well. He made a nice play to Caballero to get a force out, but it's a 2-out rally that Gil is unable to get out of. And It's an RBI single for Luke Keeschel to make it 7-3, and a 2-run single by Brooks Lee with the bases loaded off of the glove of Jose Caballero to make it 7-5, and that would be all for Luis Gil. So what looked to be a almost definite win chance is not there. And Fernando Cruz, like he did the day before, comes in and gets Royce Lewis to end the fifth. This one on a line out. And then the difference between last game and this game is that Cruz stayed in the game and pitched a 1-2-3-6. Didn't get any strikeouts, but he gets the 4 outs nonetheless. Out of the 7, Devin Williams allows a leadoff single to Austin Martin, and then he's still second. But then what does he do after that? Strikes out the sides. Larnach, Keeschel, and Outman all strike out. So great job by Devin Williams to keep the score at 2. And the Yankees head on a run on the top of the 8th. Dominguez hit by a pitch with 1 out against Cole Sands. But then Dominguez steals second, so clearly he wasn't hurt too badly. And the throw goes into center field, so he goes to third on that. And then the infield comes in against Ryan McMahon. And look, McMahon is really, really struggled at the plate by and large, but with the infield drawn in, he's able to get the RBI single to knock Dominguez in, makes it 8-5 Yankees. Bottom of the 8th, Luke Weaver comes on, and there was a leadoff single to Brooks Lee. He was hit pretty hard, but he does get Cody Clemens on a strikeout to end the inning, so hopefully that can get Weaver going a bit. And then the top of the 9th, Genesis Cabrera comes on, and the reason why I remember this specific matchup is because I was at the Yankees-Mets throw-in this year, Sunday Night Baseball, Yankee Stadium, and Cody Bellinger hit a grand slam off of then-Met Genesis Cabrera. Well, what does Cody Bellinger do again in the last, whatever you want to call it, the last hitting inning for the Yankees, as he did in that bottom of the 8th Yankee Stadium that night? Top of the 9th, this game, Cody Bellinger, lefty-lefty, as he does, homers again off of Cabrera. 2-run homer, 29th homer of the year for Cody. And just what continues to be a great, great year for Bellinger. And what that does is it takes David Bednar out of the equation, which is really good because the first game in Baltimore tomorrow night, you're not going to have Fernando Cruz. You're not going to have Devin Williams, but you will have David Bednar if and when that time comes. So that was really important for Bellinger. And so Camilo Doval comes in and pitches a really good 1-2-3 inning. Gets a couple of strikeouts. And look, maybe Camilo Doval just is most comfortable in the 9th inning because he was a closer with the San Francisco Giants. I don't know. It doesn't change the fact that David Bednar is the closer. It has to be, but it does go to show you that there have been some outings where Doval has looked pretty good, but a lot of these looked horrible. But here he's able to finish this off, and the Yankees win 10-5, win the series 2 of 3 at Minnesota. And now let's talk about Yankees-Orioles, which it's gonna be challenging. And I've looked at these 4 pitching matchups, and I'll give my thoughts on it. And it's kind of cut and dry, even though we'll see what happens. First matchup is between Max Fried and Cade Povich. Max Fried, I wouldn't say he struggled. He wasn't great in his 1 outing against the Orioles this year at Yankee Stadium in a game where he got a no decision. The Yankees ended up losing. He wasn't totally sharp. For Cade Povich, he had 1 outing against the Yanks earlier in the year in Baltimore, and he also got a no decision. He wasn't hit overly hard, but he wasn't that good. He only went 4 2/3 innings. This is a matchup that definitely favors the Yankees. No doubt. Fried Povich is one that I'm hoping the Yankees can get when you look at it on paper. Game 2, that's a little bit of a different story. Will Warren against Trevor Rogers. Trevor Rogers has been one of the best starters in the league really this year. And he was involved in that last trade deadline in 2024 with the Marlins for Kyle Stowers. So that's a trade that worked out for both teams. And so for Will Warren, he really struggled in Baltimore earlier this year, but was very good at home against Baltimore later on. And Warren has not done that well on the road. Look, I look at this game and I say, okay, this one might be a lot more challenging. And I kind of give Baltimore the edge there in the starting pitching matchup. Game 3, it's kind of like game 1, but maybe not to the extreme, but it's somewhat close. It's Carlos Rodon against Tomoyuki Sugano. And Rodon pitched really, really well in Baltimore and back earlier in the season. And Sugano pitched well in Baltimore against the Yankees back then too, but struggled at Yankee Stadium. And look, for this one, I think, it's a winnable game for the Yanks. But then game 4 I look at, and it's kind of gives me feelings like game 2. It's Cam Schlittler against Kyle Bradish. And Cam Schlittler, this will be his first outing against the Orioles, looking to bounce back after a rough outing against the Twins. But Kyle Bradish, Yankees haven't seen him in a while. He's coming back from injury, and early returns are pretty damn good. He's been, in 4 starts this year, has gotten the job done. Really, he's just been ever since 2023, this guy, he's just been a really good pitcher. So, Yankees are facing, especially in games 2 and 4, some really, really, elite starting pitching from the Baltimore Orioles, and the fact that all 4 games are, of course, in Baltimore. Uh, I would be thrilled. Like, if the Yankees can somehow win 3 or 4, I would be thrilled with that. Like, that is no small feat. I think more realistically, you might be looking at a split. And maybe not exactly the games that I said. It may not go down, oh, Yankees win games 1 and 3 and lose 2 and 4. We'll see, after discussing the on the Oriole episode. But like, this is a series that, if you really want to solidify yourselves as having that number 1 wild card spot, if you can take 3 or 4, I think it's almost a foregone conclusion at that point that will happen. That, to me, ensures it. With what the Yankees have in the final week, home against the White Sox and home against these same Orioles, I think that gets it done. And hey, maybe you can have even bigger dreams if they do win 3 or 4. That if the Blue Jays somehow slip up, maybe it makes things mildly interesting. Although, again, I think that's a bit of a pipe dream. But we'll see what happens. This is going to be the last road series of the regular season for the Yankees, and it's going to go down in Baltimore. So a road trip so far that has the Yankees at 4-2, 2 out of 3 at Boston, 2 out of 3 at Minnesota. They will try to end on a high note in Baltimore, as they will start a 4-game set with the Orioles.